Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Charlie. Today we're going to look at Kristen Modafferi's case, who disappeared 24 years ago. She was only 18 years old at the time. Kristen was an exceptional student. She was so bright, she was bumped up a year in primary. She was a straight-A student all through school and achieved nearly all A's in her SATs. In 1996, she was awarded a BART scholarship as she was graduating from high school, which covered her tuition for 4 years. Only the highest achieving students were selected to be BART scholars, and Kristen was one of them. She had just completed her first year at North Carolina State University when she enrolled herself to summer photography class at the University of California at Berkeley. Her mum and dad weren't thrilled about this, but she wanted to prove she could support herself without the help. She found a room to rent in a house in Oakland, sharing with another 4 housemates, and moved in on the 1st of June 1997. Within days of arriving, she secured not one but 2 part-time jobs, enabling her monthly bills to be covered. She delved into both straight away, and on her afternoons off, she explored the city. 3 weeks in, more specifically, on Monday, the 23rd of June, she worked her usual shift at one of her part-time jobs. This was Spinelli's coffee shop located in the Crocker Galleria. During her shift, she asked her colleagues the best way to get to Land's End, which is a popular tourist area. She explained she wanted to have some picturesque photos to turn up to class with on her first day of her photography course, which was starting the following day. She left the coffee shop 3 p.m, though didn't immediately leave the Galleria. Some of her colleagues noticed her on the 2nd floor of the shopping centre, about 3/4 of an hour later. She was seen chatting to an unknown blonde female carrying a green backpack. It's unclear whether Kristen left the building with this woman or not, and unfortunately, this woman's identity has remained unknown to this day. Kristen loved to travel and explore new places, and she was always taking short day trips around San Francisco. None of her housemates were too concerned when she didn't return home that night, as she'd been gone overnight at least once before. They were unaware that Kristen never showed up for her first day of a photography class. It wasn't until she missed her next scheduled shift at Spinelli's that they realized something was wrong. Although she was well traveled, the summer of '97 was her first proper long trip away from her mum and dad. She'd returned home a number of times whilst at uni, but this trip hadn't gone down lightly with her parents, who'd needed some persuading to let her go so far all summer long. On this basis, she phoned home regularly and consistently told them she was loving life in San Fran. And when her calls abruptly stopped for 3 consecutive days, they grew concerned. It was so out of character for her to go silent. Her dad called the house on the 25th of June and left a message with one of her housemates, who promised to have Kristen call them back. By the next morning, there was still no sign of her, and her housemates started to worry. After speaking with some of her colleagues and learning that no one had heard from her in more than 48 hours, they knew they had a problem. One of them called Kristen's parents and explained that no one had seen Kristen for a couple of days, and that they were calling the police to report her missing. Oakland Police interviewed Kristen's colleagues, who recounted that she was headed to Land's End to take some photos. She hadn't mentioned if she was going solo or if she had company, though if she was asking them for directions, it seems more probable that she was going by herself. The manager of the coffee shop claimed that he'd seen her exit the shopping mall on her own. While police continued interviewing people who'd known Kristen, dozens of San Francisco police officers and National Park Service rangers began searching the beach areas where she might have gone. Using bloodhounds, they were able to trace her steps from the mall to a nearby bus stop, where it's believed she hopped on a bus. Interestingly, her scent was picked up at Ocean Beach, which is a popular tourist area on the west side of San Francisco. Searchers were unable to find any sign of Kristen, and there were initial fears that if she had made it to Land's End that day at all, that she may have accidentally slipped off the cliffside or been swallowed up by crashing waves, which had been known to happen to other unsuspecting tourists. However, the area had been pretty crowded on that afternoon, and it's thought that there would have been witnesses to anyone falling into the water had that been the case. What is important to note is that no witnesses came forward to say they remembered seeing her there that day. So whether she did get to Land's End on Monday afternoon or not has never been confirmed. Her mum and dad arrived in San Francisco the next day. Law enforcement told them that they had no signs of foul play and were considering the possibility that Kristen had disappeared voluntarily, but her parents were adamant that she would not do that and had no reason to do so, having already chosen to spend her summer this far from home. She was committed to her impending photography course and was also excited to get back to uni to start her second year. Now, it needs to be said that although she was a thriving and a straight A student, she did take some risks. She was young and carefree, a little too trusting of others. An example of this was when she'd gone to a concert at the Shoreline Amphitheatre in Mountain View. When it was over, she realised she'd missed the last train back to Oakland, so she just decided to kip on a bench at the train station until the morning. Luckily, a young man she'd met at the concert found her there and refused to let her stay, saying that it really wasn't safe. So she agreed to go with him to his brother's house and spent the night on the couch. She got a lift into work the next morning from the same guy, who dropped by to see her from then on. Police were able to locate him and clear him as a suspect, though the incident raised alarm bells. She'd been pretty fortunate she'd met this guy who'd looked out for her, but what if she'd since trusted the wrong kind? Even though a $10,000 reward was offered for any information on her whereabouts, it led to no solid leads. As time passed, tips started to lessen, and attention around the case started to decrease. In January of 1998, the park scholars came up with a They set up a campaign using yellow ribbons at a basketball game that was being televised by ESPN. All spectators were each given a ribbon to wear, making the arena a sea of yellow around the players. And their plan worked. It caught people's attention, had many fans calling in about the ribbons, so much so that media caught on, opening up a conversation about Kristen's disappearance on national TV. By May of 1998, law enforcement stated they now believed that Kristen had been the victim of foul play, though there had been no leads that far as to what had happened to her. As they went back through all the evidence that was collected during the investigation, they noticed something taken from Kristen's room that they hadn't seen before in a newspaper found in Kristen's trash can. They discovered that she had circled a personal ad in one of the local papers. Upon reading the ad, they had reason to believe that she may have been the author. The Bay Guardian had done a special promotion where ads could be taken out for free for the week of June the 11th, and it appeared Kristen may have done so. The ad read, "Female seeking friends to share activities who enjoy music, photography, working out, walks, coffee, or simply exploring the Bay Area. Interested? Call me." Unfortunately, by the time police picked up on the potential significance of the ad, the paper had gotten a new computer system and it purged all its old files. There was no way to confirm if Kristen had taken out the ad or perhaps responded to it, but detectives wondered if the blonde woman seen with Kristen on the day she went missing may have been someone she met through it. They renewed their plea for information about this woman, but she was never identified. I need to add here that it's never been proven that Kristen did write that ad or even responded to it. It was simply another possibility. So her parents returned to San Francisco a number of times over the next year, each time distributing new flyers about the case. They increased the reward from $25,000 to $50,000 in the hope it would bring more information. An anonymous donor donated 20 billboards around the San Francisco area, and they used them to publicize the new rewards. Then in May of 1999, John his radar since the early days of the investigation, when he called in a tip claiming that he knew who killed Kristen and where they could find her remains. He claimed 2 women known to him were responsible for killing Kristen, though after interviewing them, both were eliminated as suspects. It turned out that they'd worked with John's girlfriend, and they'd been responsible for getting her fired. He'd used Kristen's case as a way of getting his own back on them. A number of women came forward accusing him of various crimes against them, ranging from sexual assault to kidnapping. An ex-girlfriend claimed he tore pages out of her diary from around the time Kristen vanished. It's a weird coincidence, but as many believe he has something to do with her disappearance. The act of getting rid of what could potentially incriminate him is very suspicious. One of his girlfriends said he threatened her, saying the same thing that happened to Kristen would happen to her. She fled but told police that she believed he was serious and was responsible for Kristen's disappearance. He was given a polygraph test, which he passed. Ultimately, police never had sufficient evidence to charge him. The FBI opened a criminal kidnapping investigation into Kristen's disappearance in 2006, though there has never been any evidence that would lead to a criminal charge. A possible suspect was Robert Durst, who was linked to a number of other cases, including the unsolved disappearance of his first wife. He was charged with the murder of Susan Berman. However, authorities state he is not a person of interest in this case. Going back to the blonde woman at the mall with the green backpack on the day that Kristen went missing. She could be innocent and too scared to come forward. Or she could simply be unaware of her importance in the case. What if she was from out of town and just stopped to ask a question? It's a possibility. The biggest concern about her is that predators are known to use women to lure another woman, and that this may have been the case. So, what do I think happened? My feeling is, as is so often the case, she trusted someone known to her already. Let's go back 6 years. In 2015, so that's 18 years after her disappearance, Kristen's parents hired private investigator Paul Dosty and his cadaver dog Buster. When he and Buster visited Kristen's old residence, Buster immediately alerted his handler. Every time he sniffed the vent leading to the basement, he barked. Working with forensic anthropologist Dr. Advas, who developed new technology that detects human decomposition chemicals in soil even after decades having gone past. Both investigator Dosty and Dr. Vass have said further tests confirmed that human decomposition was present. According to Dr. Vass, the DNA found within these human decomposition chemicals matched Kristen's. It doesn't mean Kristen's body is there, but it may have been there 24 years ago. This would require Oakland Police to do their own tests at the house. It's unclear why, but Oakland Police have made little to no progress since. Kristen's case remains unsolved. It was at the very end of my research that I came across a piece of information that tied up loose ends for me. I stumbled across an article that said she talked about having been to a summer solstice party on the night of Saturday the 21st, 2 days before she disappeared. And guess where that party took place? Ocean's Beach, Land's End. Which explains how the dogs tracked her scent there. She may well have been back there after work on the Monday, or she may have gone home first and never made her way there after all. I think the basement, the residence on 274 Chain Avenue, where Kristen lived, holds the answers to her unsolved case. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think happened, Kristen? There's a Facebook page run by Kristen's family. Please go and show your support at Help Find Kristen Modafferi. And for those of you not on Facebook, you can find a webpage titled findkristen.com. If you have any information on the case, please contact Oakland Police. I'll leave the details